We just got through a very big conference. We covered a lot of ground in 2 days, and we had over 60 speakers present, and it was all relevant. It wasn't, like we said, we didn't do anything on RESPA Section 8. We focused on what's happening today with the pandemic, COVID-19, and what lenders and servicers are doing to survive and to pivot. Let's talk about some of the highlights.
I'll jump first. Mortgage 2020 is in the record books. Really across the board, it just really shows to me how important it is to come together, especially when things are difficult or challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many people that I didn't know were attending have reached out to me and said, "Hey, that was an amazing conference that you guys put on. Thank you so much for doing that." The information that we need all the time. When the media guy, the strictly media guy was talking, that my very conservative partner, who's very detail oriented and always by the book, that his head would explode, and vice versa, right? When he's talking compliance and the fair lending risks of social media. Yeah, I thought that the media guy would just fall out of his chair and go into fits.
That was really good. And I don't know it was as good as Cuomo versus Cuomo, but we had a lot of those moments that there was just good chemistry. And I think that epitomized it. So, there were good opportunities like that. And I think it changed it up, it mixed it up, how the conferences are done. I think without the PowerPoint and more about dialogue, it was more from the heart. And you had to deal with the message. That panel, at least for my purpose, many panels I'm sure were like that. But that one epitomized the beauty of this kind of a conference. We mixed it up with different people, different media. It wasn't put together with PowerPoints. Instead, it was about dialogue.
I agree. And I thought personally, just having Brian Montgomery and Dave Stevens kind of drop everything. I know they're kind of busy right now, and come on and give updates was really incredibly helpful. It's one of those things where we're bringing everybody in the industry together because we need this. We need our conferences. This is a great way for everybody to get together again and hear from a singular voice about what's happening.
Brian Montgomery, like you said, it's not like he has nothing to do, right? He's running FHA and acting in second chair in HUD the entire thing. And you notice he talked about not only just the FHA program, but homelessness. He talked about modernization of the FHA system so that people can so that the whole system can operate better for everyone. And he talked about fair lending. It's always on the minds of people. It's this kind of stuff that made it important.
The information, the message, somehow just the vibe was different, and including how they presented and what they said. Even Brian Montgomery, and I know he has, he's with HUD and he has a certain message he has to give, and even then, he gave a message beyond that, and that was nice. I mean, so people really came out of the shells and really gave it their all.
One of the other pieces that was really helpful, we're bringing in folks from outside our industry. Tim Sanders and Steve Sims, those guys who are maybe less familiar to the back end mortgage folks and maybe more familiar on the production side, that had used the phrase before, cross-pollination. Ken Perry, he had said he heard from an over 10-year compliance vet who, after one of the panels, said, of all the conferences I've been to, that was the most honest and real compliance panel I'd ever seen. I'll also say it was so refreshing to hear the information on the servicing panel. From Shayna Arrington, who literally is breathing this, from Michael Lau, from Floyd Drew, folks who are day-to-day. Ray, your perspectives were very helpful. So to be able to get that thought leadership on the front lines, the number of people that they've already spoken to between their two companies, hearing requests about forbearance, literally on the front lines dealing with the issues we're confronted with now, and being willing to take the time and share the information for all of us to learn from. To your point, that's critical information we can then bring back to policymakers and say, here's what's working, here's what's not.
It made an enormous impression on me, just being able to listen to the word on the street, listen to all of our counterparts, all the compliance officers, all the in-house attorneys, and the lenders themselves, and how they're surviving this crisis. And I think that was one of the main reasons for us to do this, is to bring everybody together to talk about how they're coping and solutions. And I love the peer effect of this because people listening could tell immediately either I'm doing what everybody else is doing or I'm behind. I thought that was really important. And so we got in the weeds with the technical people that really know how to handle this, and will have this going forward too as a skill set. Listening to Nima Vadat talk about the logistics of getting everybody to work from home, that made a huge impression on me, because you have to call your tech vendor and say, I need 100 monitors, please. Well, you can't, because it's a pandemic and everybody else asked for the same thing. And people really didn't plan for that in their BCP. It's never really been tested for this scenario. Also, we led a panel talking about the technology piece and remote online notarization and digital closings and digital loans. That's a tough subject. It's not something that's very simple. You just flip a light switch and say, here you go. And with all of the temporary orders by governors around the country and by state banking departments giving people the ability to work from home, or to waive appraisals, or to sign documents remotely, that type of thing. All of those things, which aren't going to last forever necessarily, were really important. It was great to hear from everybody about issues.
We had the policy guys. So we had the DC group, and not just from the banking or mortgage banking, but also title. And that is a huge issue now, whether you can close loans, et cetera, and what we're doing. And I know in this instance and where we are now that that we're doing very well. We've got good things that were pushed through, the CARES Act, et cetera. There were good things that were pushed through to help stabilize the industry and, of course, help consumers at the same time. And yet there's gaps. And I think what happens on the industry side, particularly on the industry side, when you're in the trenches, is you look at the things we didn't get. And sometimes there's a thought of when they made the policy, they didn't fully understand what we were going through. And I think it was important, talking to Justin and to Rod and to Steve, that we were aware of them. We just can't do everything right now. We have to get what we can get. And right now it's as Rod would say, making sure that everyone is going to be safe in their home for now. That was the priority. We have to go back and, take the edges off, but and there's other gaps we have to deal with that are aware of it. But I think it was a good message because, again, it's easy to be critical of the policymakers thinking they don't know what they're talking about, when in fact, we don't really know the constraints that they have.
Hearing, Jay Brinkman, man, how refreshing, how great that he's willing to come back to industry after being retired for a few years. As he says, in a midstream doesn't bat an eye. And I'll roughly quote, when you're in a tunnel and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you still have to realize you're in the damn tunnel. Dave Stevens, wow. Yeah, I don't think you get more real, in the middle of his talk, checking his phone to make sure he wasn't being called by Jerome Powell. Because he had previously spoken to him that day. I mean, talk about in the middle of the crisis, these people taking time to share with us and share with everyone who participated.
Every panel that I lit up, every stage that I lit up on my screen, I thought, I would have come just for this. They were all amazing. I will say, because you guys talked about the core areas, I'll talk a little bit about two other aspects. So one is with regard to the regulators and the people that work with them, like, for example, the ABA or the MBA, but also just hearing about what it is that they're focusing on and knowing that they're talking behind the scenes every day, and they're making sure that industries, problems are getting to the forefront. I also think of myself as a pretty good communicator. And Vaneeta takes it to a whole new level. In fact, I'm thinking of unfriending her now on LinkedIn because I'm a little embarrassed. Just that kind of information is something we wouldn't normally get in our industry. And so I that to me is huge.
I think the most emotional or touching part was Deb Dubois and MBA's opens doors. Such a nice thing. I'm so glad that we're contributing.
To anyone watching, keep in mind that you can go to Opens Doors directly. If you were a part of the event, there's a room set up for Opens Doors. The opportunity to contribute exists and will continue because the need is greater than those contributing.
So all in all, it was one of the best conferences that I've been to in a long time, and I'm glad that we've been a part of it.